Evening all, Remarks here, back again with another video, back again with another Oculus Go video. Now you probably don't realise this, but I'm watching this on my Oculus Go. So this camera that I'm filming on now is a VR180 camera. It's the brand new Insta360 EVO. Only got released today, so it's super new, and I'm doing a review on it. So stay tuned to this long video where I go through everything you need to know about this camera. As it's VR180, it means you can look all the way to the left in your VR headset or on your mobile phone, all the way to the right, and look back again if you want to. You can look at my feet, you can look at my head, you can look at whatever you want to look at any point, and it's in 3D. So me sticking my hand out there will look like me sticking my hand out there. It's in 5.7K, and so that's super high detail, and Insta360 are known for super high quality cameras. The trick this camera also has up its sleeve is it can flip into a 360 2D camera. So then you can look behind you as well. Stay tuned to the super long video where I go over everything you need to know about the Insta360 EVO. And what's even more cool is I was watching that streamed from the camera itself, straight to my Oculus Go virtual reality headset. No PC, no phone required, straight from this camera to this headset, watching it in 3D. How cool is that? Let's check it out. So here we go, here is the Insta360 EVO. So this camera is getting released today, March 13th. Insta360 have made a lot of 360 cameras, and this is their first VR180 camera. What does VR180 camera mean? That means, like you've seen before at the start of the video, the camera has two lenses that capture the full sort of 180-degree picture in each lens. So both of them are wide angle lenses, and basically each one is an eye. So as you can see, that is an eye. That makes it look well weird, doesn't it? Woo. Basically each one's capturing an eye. So when it plays it back in a VR headset or anything like that, it shows a different picture for each eye, and you'll get the full stereoscopic sort of feel. So everything is 3D in that full 180 sphere. So everything in front of you, side to side, gets captured at the same time. The big difference between this and, say, a traditional 360 video camera or photo camera, this does photos as well, is that with VR180 you get to hide behind the camera and still take photos rather than being sort of captured at the same time. However, this camera does, by the press of a button, transform into a traditional 360 camera. So you have the lens either side that capture a full 180 either side and capture the full 360, so you can look all around you. Now the downside of that is it will capture you as well in the shot unless you go hiding, and it doesn't do it in 3D, so you need the two lenses looking the same direction to get 3D, so you end up with just one lens looking either way to get 2D. But the quality you get out of this is still some of the best that you can get in a 360 consumer camera, especially at this price point, because it is pretty much like the Insta360 One, which is their other sort of consumer camera, which, as you can see, has a lens either side, just like this does now, to create a 360 picture. So this is already available, already out, and a lot of people have this and love it. And now this is technically, I would say, kind of the upgrade and the replacement for this, because this does it in the same sort of thing. The only real difference between the two is there's no real intention to have waterproof cases or make this properly a proper action cam, whereas this one you can get sort of rugged cases that allow you to take it underwater and sort of go cycling or skiing or whatever with it, where you can't with this. So coming up in this video, we're going to have a closer look at the camera, compare it to some of the other VR180 and 360 cameras that I've got, so you can kind of have a size comparison if you've got one as well. And we'll go through lots of different sort of examples of quality, and we'll compare it to like the Vuze XR that I've got as well, which is another VR180 camera in quality, 5.7K as well, to kind of see, is this any better? Is it worth your money over that one? So let's take a closer look at the camera in this shrine of 360 and VR180 cameras that I own. So these are the cameras I own. I don't have the Insta360 Pro 2 that I do own as well here, but that is massive. But we'll have a little comparison to the size of all these as we kind of go through it as well. But here's the camera. What you get in the box is a sort of 3D viewer for your phone. So this kind of clips on, so you can near instantly view back any of the VR180 footage you capture. With this, works very well as it is. You get a little tripod. These things I think will be subject to change come the full retail packaging, because I did get some retail packaging, but they said it wasn't the final one, so to not show it. So TBC exactly what gets included, but you do get this USB cable here with a right angle adapter for the camera which is useful for kind of keeping it out of the way. So it's nice to have that. And then you get this little protective sort of pouch, sort of microfiber type of cloth, to look after your camera. And it's not the best, I would say, for protecting it, so you might want to pick up something a little nicer just kind of protect it. But out comes the camera for a closer look. So here it is in the VR180 mode. Go on, focus on that camera, go on, zoom in. There we go, so nicely in focus. So you can kind of see it's two lenses as far apart as you need, so for your eyes, so sort of 6.5 centimeters apart, which is ideal for VR180 and nice sort of 3D stereoscopic depth. There's the logo there, and it says 3D VR on there. You've got a microphone here and here, so it does stereo audio. It doesn't do ambisonic or surround sound or anything like that. It's only got those two mics on it. If we turn it over to this one side, you've got your micro SD slot and micro USB. So we don't have USB-C, which is a shame for sort of fast charging or anything like that. But I have tested charging this at the same time with a normal sort of 5 amp, 2 amp, 5 volt sort of charger, and it keeps charged the entire time. The memory card that comes with it is the usual sort of typical sort of memory card. So if you can't see this already, you need one of these sort of A1 cards. It has a 3 on it and a V30. That's very important because the amount of data this thing puts out, you need a fast memory card. So make sure you sort of do that. Make sure the label faces forward and it just pops back in. It's nice and flush, which is good. One of my issues with the Vuze camera is the memory card sticks out a little bit when you've got the flap open to charge at the same time, and it can kind of get caught and it's popped out a few times. So this is quite good. So that's a little switch for keeping it locked when it's in its 360 mode, but we'll get into that in a second. On the back you have nothing. You just have this kind of material to it. It's kind of hard rubber, I'd say. It's got kind of like a hard rubber feel to it anyway. It's got kind of nice, not I won't say grippy, but a nice finish to it. On the front the same, and then you've got that kind of usual sort of camera sort of lenticular type sort of touch thing around the lenses. At the top you've got another latch for unlatching it from VR180 mode or locking it in. That button unlocks it. Then you've got your mode button and your power button. So if we look at this, you can use either button to turn the camera on, which I find annoying in a little way. I'd rather it always be one button or the other. But you can use either button to turn it on, but only the shutter button, this one, will actually turn it off. So you just hold the button down for a few seconds, jumps into life, and you can see you get some green lights on the front saying it's ready to go and ready to shoot. The lights are quite bright. The LEDs, you can't turn them off or anything like that, so you've always got to have these super bright LEDs on. It's in photo mode, so if you hit sort of take a photo, it flashes once, beeps once, and there's your photo taken. If you hit the mode button here, it'll switch over to video mode, and then when you click the shutter button, it'll start recording and it starts flashing. So on the front, those lights flash, and as I say, you can't turn them off. And that button on the top, that light on the top, flashes as well, so you know you're recording, which is once again one of my issues with the Vuze is you can't really tell, apart from this really faint white light that it's recording. So you can tell from a distance that this thing is recording. You can't turn them off, which is almost a shame, because you want to kind of hide sometimes when you kind of not stand out and that sort of thing. But, you know, it works. So you press it again to stop. As I say, only this shutter button actually turns it off. So hold it down for a few seconds, and beep, 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 and off it goes. So to transform it into 360 mode, all you need to do is press this little button here. That releases this catch. So you just pull that back in again. Like that. So get a nicer look at that, shall we? So catch out, catch in. So all you do to put that in is push that forward and then clip it into place, and it's locked in and it's not going anywhere. And then when you want to kind of put it into 360 mode, press that button to release it, and you can just pop that back in, push it down like that, and then on the other side you've got the same sort of buttons here where you just pull them together. So you just pop them like that, and then that holds the camera together in 360 mode. And you can see the 360 lenses are on the same side of the camera, so they're right opposite each other, a little bit further apart than say the 1X. And it's the same process taking videos and photos. You turn it on and off, the same button combination. If you want to turn it back into VR180 mode, all you do is release the button on this side. So just press that down, it releases it, push that in so it's not out of the way. Then once you're back over, you just click that in, and it's locked into VR180 mode. I didn't show you that on the bottom, but you do have these kind of venting sort of mesh to kind of help keep it cool, and then a usual sort of screw adapter for any typical sort of tripod into there. All I would say is there's not much distance between the sort of front and the back of the camera, so you want to kind of get something that kind of keeps it away from sticking out the front. Otherwise, when it's looking down in VR180 mode or even 360 mode, it will show out. So this, for example, will stick out, as you can kind of see. You can kind of see it from underneath. But you know, you can get little adapters. Our Eco Theta V has this little sort of adapter that I bought for it, which will work quite well. Just kind of extend the bottom a little bit, because when things are a certain distance away and then you put a tripod mount on there, it won't sort of stick out as much, so it'd be a lot easier to kind of hide. So there's that, and there's your kind of quick view of the camera. Let's do a quick little comparison to all the different cameras I've got here at the moment. So here's the One X. So this is kind of almost the camera it's technically replacing, because it does a lot of what the One X can do, but also has VR180. So you can sort of see, so this way, the One X is a little bit taller, and can we put it underneath? Yeah, a little bit taller, but not as wide. They're about a similar size when it's out in full sort of width. If we fold that over, just to kind of compare, you can see now it's now double the width. So it will obviously stand out a little bit more. But there you go. The One X does have a replaceable battery, which the EVO doesn't. It takes about an hour and 40 minutes to charge the battery to full. So from dead to full takes about an hour and 40 minutes. And I think it's got a 1200 milliamp hour battery, which is about the same, I think, as the One X. But you can charge both of these and use them at the same time, so it works quite well. And with this, it works straight off power when you plug it in. So there's no kind of waiting like 30 seconds for it to get a little bit of power before it starts working. As soon as you plug it in, if it's got a dead battery, it starts working, which is a big thumbs up. With a lot of cameras these days, you've got to wait like 10 minutes or something from getting enough charge from actually to turn on. But this one actually turns on straight away. The One X does come with this little sort of pouch to slip it into, and a little lanyard so you can hang it around your neck. Which is kind of convenient. It fits in quite nice and snug, connects to the lenses quite well, but it's always worth kind of grabbing a different case even for that one, really, because when this one is in 3D mode, 360 mode even, it doesn't fit in the pouch. It doesn't fit in there, so you do need to turn it into VR180 to be able to put it away. So once it's like that, you can put it back in its pouch. But what I've been using is the case that comes with the Gear 360. So this is the original 2016 Gear 360. Doesn't do VR180, but takes still decent 360 photos, some of the highest resolution you can get. And if you're just starting out in taking 360 photos and you've got a Samsung phone, I still recommend you grab one of those just to give it a go. But I've been using this case instead, because even when it's folded up or down, it still fits in. So, you know, kind of convenient, just to kind of keep it scuff free while I've been traveling around taking all my test footage with it. Here's the GoPro Fusion. See, the GoPro is a massive in comparison. If we kind of turn this into the 3D mode again, so you can kind of have a proper sort of size comparison between the two. So there you go. Much bigger. That's a lot heavier as well. That is chunky baby, that is. But once again, that does some good 360 video, only 360. These Theta cameras, they do 360. You can kind of see I've got the Theta S and V. They kind of have a similar size. Well, they are the exact same size as each other, but much bigger than the, taller than the EVO. But they only do 360, not VR180. So there you go. There's those two. What we've got here, we've got the Mi Sphere. The Mi Sphere, is it as wide as the Mi Sphere in VR180 mode? Oh, it's wider than that. But the Mi Sphere is obviously super thin. And obviously once this is in 360 mode, that's much fatter. But there you go. We've got the 2017 Gear 360. Still a cute little camera. You get these dirt cheap as well, so they're quite good. I find these are great just for live streaming. They live stream in 2K super easy. So if you've got yourself a Samsung phone and one of these, grab one of those. Here's the original Insta360 one. Sort of this weird sort of lozenge shape. And then the one that's I've got that's probably the most sort of direct comparison is this. So this is the Vuze XR, which you'll see I'll do some comparison videos with this one. So you see size-wise, it dwarfs the EVO a lot. I mean, look at the size of that. If it does the VR180 mode, you have to press this button and then the two lenses come out. So you can sort of see even at this point, it's taking up a lot more space than the EVO, and records in the same sort of quality and everything else as what it does. So it does the 360 by pushing the lenses in, and this one does the 360 pushing the lenses in. And granted, the top bit is probably of a similar size, but when you can't take into consideration the handle, and the battery life is probably worse on the XR. So the XR only runs for about 45 minutes. You can get about an hour. It's not as good. As I was saying before, if you look here where the sort of memory card is, the memory card kind of sticks up. So if you've got this plugged into power, which it does have USB-C, which is nice, if you plug this into power, you can easily kind of just push your finger down and the memory card pops out. Whereas most other memory card slots, they're flush, and you can't just press your finger against the case at any point and it pops out. So that's, I'd say, a bit of a negative. This has popped out a few times, so bear that in mind. But this is a nice feature, flip-flop. Bit of a maybe more convenient sort of mechanism for this one than that one. This one you've got to lock in each time you want to kind of flick between the two, but you're nice and secure. It's not going to flip and flop, whereas I guess this could take a bit of a nudge potentially and then sort of mess up your 3D, whereas if this one takes a nudge, it's going to be fine. It's not going to kind of mess up your shot. It's obviously just going to be moved, and a bit of sort of stabilization needed. It beeps after recording for 30 minutes, so it records for 30 minutes straight, and it beeps after 30 minutes but carries on recording, so it makes a separate file, carries on recording. There's no sort of split in your recording, but you obviously got to deal with a separate file. So if you're recording for a long period of time, it can do it. As I say, the battery lasts for about an hour. I've tested it. That's how long it records for at the highest setting. So if you turn some of those settings down, you may get a little bit more sort of time out of it. So for an hour, that works quite well, and I'm quite pleased with that. As I say, you can plug it in via power, so micro USB with the included cable or any other cable, and I've had it running on battery packs and all that sort of stuff, and it's been lasting as long as I want it to record, really, as long as the memory card will last. I think there is a version that you can buy that comes with a bundled memory card, so you can kind of save yourself the hassle of getting yourself one that works best with it. Every minute of footage on the highest quality is about 760 megabits. So bear that in mind. It does have a storage saver mode, and that actually sort of reduces the quality and gets you down to about 480 megabits per second, so it saves you about a third of your space. That storage saver mode doesn't affect photos. They're always the same size regardless of what's the quality setting you choose. When recording from VR180 to 360, as I say, you just press that button, flick it in, lock it into place, that sort of thing. It doesn't affect the camera at all, sort of thing. You don't need to turn it off and back on again to get it to work. It recognises that, changes straight away, and same in the app. If you've got it connected to your phone at the same time, it recognises that you've done it and just carries on working, sort of thing. It won't record straight from one to the other. It will stop the recording and go again. But you can sort of switch between them without having to turn the whole device off, which is good. I think in using it, you've got to kind of be careful, especially when changing it sort of between modes. When you're moving it between this and that, it's kind of easy to kind of, because you want to pinch this bit here almost to bring them together, and the lenses are right there, that you might sort of pinch the lenses. Now, you're not going to damage the lenses by doing that, unless you've got some greasy fingers. But what you might want to consider doing is maybe keeping a cloth with you, so you can obviously just quickly polish up those lenses, make sure they're crystal clear, because any sort of finger marks or smudge marks will sort of affect the overall sort of image quality, so you want to kind of keep one of those to hand. It's not much of a big deal. You can, more so in VR180, it's easy to avoid, but when you're going for 360, you've got to kind of pinch that bit almost. You kind of, I don't know, I've always been tempted to pinch the top because that's where the clasp is, to lock that in place. I've had no real issues with clipping this in or out. It's been working fine. So as I say, you press the button to release it, push that in, push it together, clip that over to that, and it clips in pretty much every single time. Feels like a nice confident click. You're not going to get this kind of popping open at any point without you knowing, or as I say with the Vuze, being pushed back or anything like that. You can be kind of confident that it's going to be sort of a solid sort of format and shot for the entire time. Alright, next up, let's have a look at setting this up with your phone. So we'll go over Android and Apple, but I've got an iPhone X here, so we're going to go through the setup with this first. They're pretty much the same. I've seen no real difference between the apps. That's always been one of my bugbears with these cameras, is sometimes the iOS version is better than the Android version, and it's a real big frustration of mine. But thankfully for this, they're pretty much the same, which is big thumbs up to Insta360 for sorting that out. First thing we need to do is set up connecting this to the Wi-Fi. So the EVO connects to Wi-Fi, so it creates its own little Wi-Fi network. So if you turn the camera on, it turns on and then will set up its own Wi-Fi. You can't turn off the Wi-Fi of the camera itself. It is always on regardless of what you're doing. There's no buttons for turning it on and off or anything like that. And I confirmed that with Insta, there's no way to turn it off. So always Wi-Fi, so you can't save any battery that way. So if we go into settings and we go into Wi-Fi, and we'll let it search, and what we're looking for is something that starts with EVO. So here we go, EVO, then it'll ask for a password. Your password should be by default 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and done. So 1 to 8 should connect. Thinking about it, and it's connected. So then all we do is go into the EVO app, which you can download on the App Store. So just search for Insta360 EVO on the Play Store or the Apple Store, and it should open. There we go. This is still early. There might be a different one that gets released on actual release day, so there may be some slight differences, but there should be pretty much the same. Down the bottom, we've got a few options. The main ones being the sort of take photos one or the take video and the settings button. So if we go into taking a photo, we can see it brings up a live preview, so we can see me. Hello. So there we go. I'm in that picture there. At the top, you see we've got the battery of the camera. You can sort of see whether it's in VR180 or 360 mode from there. And it's just say the quality is compressed. You don't get a live preview in HDR 5.7K recording, but you do get a live preview in every other mode. You'll see it does go sort of down in quality when you're sort of recording, but it still works. So what we can do, so rather than, what you can still do is still take a picture with the camera. So you can still click a button to take a picture, which is great, because I know the Vuze, for example, if you've got the app connected, you can't use the camera buttons to take a picture, and vice versa. So you've got to kind of do one or the other. So it's nice that you can still do this. So once again, as well here, you can just click that, and you take a picture. Nice and simple. And with the viewfinder, you can just use your finger to move it around and look whichever direction you want to look at. So staying down the bottom down here for a little bit then, so you can switch between video and photo mode with those buttons. You can preview the photos and stuff you've taken there. It'll take you to a gallery. And then you've got a settings button for photos. Whichever option you're in, you've got an option for that. And then you can kind of just choose your different buttons. So mode, if you click that, you've either got the standard photo mode, which is pretty much everything on auto, but you can tweak those things. HDR, so if you're keeping your camera relatively stable and not moving, and there isn't probably too much movement in your shot, go for that, because it takes 3 exposures and then puts them together in the app to make a HDR, so nice to high dynamic range. So what that means is dark areas will be brighter, lighter areas will be darker, and it'll kind of even it all out, so you just get more detail overall in the picture. You've also got interval, which is like sort of time-lapse type thing, so you can kind of take one photo every few seconds and that sort of thing. You've got a timer, so you can do anything from timer off to 3 seconds all the way up to a 60-second timer, which is nice because there are, believe it or not, some 360 or VR180 cameras that don't have a timer at all. Terrible. So we'll click that. We can choose some sort of basic sort of auto sort of options, so you can go full auto, ISO priority, shutter priority, or full manual, which is nice because some cameras, once again, don't give you any manual control. So when we go into manual controls, we can do, what can we do? We can do ISO, anything from 100 up to 3200. With shutter speed, we can go 1/8000th of a second, all the way up to 55-second shutter speed. Wow, it's nice to have those options. You may never use any of these options, but it's nice to have them. White balance, you get sort of auto, incandescent, sunny, cloudy, and fluorescent. We'll keep it on auto. And you can turn on RAW. So if you turn on RAW, what it'll do is save DNG files to your memory card. If you take photos with the camera and you've got your app connected at the same time, it actually saves the photos to your phone as well as the memory card. So it kind of saves you having to kind of go back and forth between the two. Videos only saves to the memory card, so that's one to bear in mind. So we can go back to mode, click on that. What we can also do then is just click on the settings button again and go into video. Once again, the same premise as before. You wouldn't have seen them, but that little light switched from one to the other on the actual camera to here. Actually, you can probably see that on here. Look, ding, 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 ding. And we've got the settings button again, so we can choose some settings. So if we go in here, we've got a standard mode one, you've got the normal video, you've got time lapse, which is, as I say before, where it takes one photo, one photo sort of every sort of few seconds and then builds it into a video. And HDR mode. And HDR mode, once again, means it sort of double or triple exposes the video, so you get more detail in the darks and in the lights, and it does work really well. And I'll do some comparisons later so you can sort of see the difference it can make. But it's not perfect, be careful, but if you kind of play with it nicely, it works really well. So if we go into video, we can change the quality from 4K 30 frames per second, 4K 50 frames per second, which is nice, means you can get some nice slow-mo. 5.7K 30 and 3K 100 FPS, and those all work in 360 or VR180. So that's nice. So technically, for me being in a power region, I can go 3K 100 frames per second and go 4 times slower than normal. How awesome is that? And 3K, you know, it's not going to look amazing, but it's still a fun feature to play with. So we'll keep it on 5.7K. Let's get the full quality out of it. We've got some auto or manual options. We'll go manual again, and you can sort of see our ISO goes from anything from 100 to 3200, the same again. Shutter's the same from, what we've got, 8 thousandths of a second to 50. Oh, it says 30, but I imagine that's 55, so there might be a typo there. White balance, same options as before. You can do log mode, so that basically kind of takes a lot of the colour out. You can almost see it in the picture here. Look, it kind of goes from a sort of predetermining what all the colour and exposures should be to a log mode where it kind of takes a lot of the colour out and allows you to colour grade a bit easier. So it's an option worth kind of considering. Oh, let's go back in there. Let's turn log mode back off again. And then Google Street View. So this is a Google Street View certified camera. You can't use Google Street View with VR180, but your 360 you can. So click on that if you're kind of interested in Street View type stuff. So that's pretty much all those sorts of things. Down here you do have a very cool button, which is this sort of VR viewer option. You click that and it instantly goes into this sort of view mode where you can view it like a VR sort of Google Cardboard type view. So you can grab the sort of little glasses that came with it, slot that onto your phone. It does depend on your phone. I've got a Note 9 phone as well, and it doesn't work with this viewer because it's so big. But then what that does, it creates like a little VR viewer, and then you can look around real time VR180. Now the quality is not as good as the 5.7K, but you can get a proper feel and look for what's being framed, what's not being framed, that sort of thing in real time. So you can start sort of nudging the camera around and getting it in the absolute perfect spot in real time. How cool is that? So you could put this camera anywhere you want and then still look around as if you're standing there. Awesome. So let's get back out of that. So if we pop those down and then just tap on it and click the back button, back into live preview mode. And as I say, this is the button you click onto to go view whatever photos are in your camera. So this is the photo we took earlier of us. We can change some of the modes. You can go into that sort of VR mode again and grab your glasses, stick it on. You can change sort of the view here. You can just do like a flat view, which is pretty much the same to be honest, in VR180, and that's the fisheye. You can take a snapshot, so at any point if you kind of go, oh, that's kind of a good picture, I'm going to zoom in there, I like that, tap that and it'll take a screenshot of that bit and you can just use that as a photo. Pretty cool. You can apply filters to it, so you've got all these different filters and effects. You can try and turn on how strong you want them to be. We won't turn any of those on because we don't like those filters. We'll add our own filters if we ever want to filter, shall we? Up here we've got the more information depending on what it is. This one only just gives us the option to delete, so we don't want to do that, so we click off it. And then you've got the share button. So if we click on that, then that gives us various things that we can do to share it. You can share it straight to Facebook, all that good stuff. If you want to just save a copy, you just click on album. And then you either get the VR180 mirror mode, which is probably how most sort of VR viewers would probably save it. So if you just want sort of a version of the photo to kind of save somewhere for a VR viewer, say your Oculus Go or something like that, you'd save that. Or you can just do a screenshot, and like I said before, you can kind of frame something up and then save that, and then that'll be a photo that looks like that. And you can change sort of the different sort of aspect ratios of it here. So you can kind of do an Instagram one, and we can save that. And that'll save in our photo album. From our album at the bottom, you do also have the settings option. If we go into here, you can log into your Insta360 account. You can manage your SD card. So you can sort of see we've got 71 minutes worth of video left and 5,327 photos remaining. We have a 32 gig card in here at the moment, 26 gig remaining. We can either format it, which is nice. Not all 360 cameras allow you to format your memory cards, so it's nice that we've got the option here. You can do image quality. So this is an interesting option here. So it's image quality. So you get max quality or storage saver. Be careful, because I've recorded some stuff before thinking it was in the max quality and it was in storage saver and had to go back and record a load of stuff. So be aware. But storage saver still does produce a good quality. They recommend you use storage saver if you're going to use it for the streaming to your Oculus Go headset. So we'll get into that in a bit. But you can stream from your camera, straight from your camera, to your Oculus Go and view the footage that you've saved on this camera in the native format, and it works in VR180 or 360. So that's ideal. If you're going to do that mostly, if that's what you're going to do the most of the time, storage save your house, just because it just reduces the file size, makes it easier to stream via that Wi-Fi connection that it creates. But max quality probably comes out at about sort of 100 megabits per second. The storage saver comes out about 60. And it does vary depending on what sort of you're shooting. But as it sort of says, you know, it just makes sure that, you know, it's just a smaller file size so it can transfer between the two easily. Maybe you're desperate to get that one more shot before you run out of memory card space, you can switch it onto that. You can upgrade your firmware from here. You can connect a Bluetooth remote, so I imagine the same Bluetooth remote that works with the One X or the Insta360, the original one, will work with this as well. And then more camera settings. We can calibrate the gyro, we can calibrate the 360 stitching, and we can turn on and off the camera sound. So it does make a lot of beeping. You can't turn off the lights and stuff like that, but you can turn off that. So you can calibrate the stitching if you've got any stitching issues. What I would suggest is don't touch those unless you need to. So if you've actually got a stitching issue or a gyro issue, so it doesn't stabilize your footage or anything like that, then do it. But don't do it unless you have to, because the default one usually is fine. Nadir logo, by default, it puts like a black smudge and stuff on the bottom. So when you look down where the camera actually would be, it puts a little logo. If you find that and you don't want it, just come in here and turn it off, and then it'll go and it'll just be by default. If you wanted to add your own image, so you've got your own circular image or something, you can click on the plus and go to your photo library and add one in. So when you're happy, you just go complete. You can link your account, watermark as well. So when you're creating certain videos, being applied to free capture and spin view. So if you're creating more sort of 360, sort of when you crop in and stuff like that, you can add the logo that says created with Insta360 on your footage. Turn that off and then it won't do it, and then you can clear your cache as well. So that's all your settings you pretty much need to know on the iOS app. Let's quickly switch over to Android so you can kind of see it on there as well. So here we go. I've got myself a Note 9, so it's an Android phone. Once again, make sure your camera's on, connected to Wi-Fi. Bring down your Wi-Fi settings and go into them. You click on the sort of name and it brings you in. You're looking once again for EVO something or other. Click on that and then it'll ask you for a password. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And connect. So I've already got the app open. So if I go into the Insta360 EVO app, here we are on the homepage, same as before. Once we click the shutter button, in we go into here. We sort of see our battery is depleting as we've been messing around with it here, me creating this video. So all the same options are here. So if we click the sort of menu options here, all the same sort of settings, which is nice. So as I say before, there are some cameras out there that don't have the same settings in their Android and their iOS devices. So big thumbs up to Insta for doing that. So it doesn't matter whether you're on iOS or Android, you get the same sort of experience. So just as I was wrapping up this video, putting the finishing touches on and that sort of thing, I've just had an updated version of this case come through, which wasn't ready when I first started doing the video, but it is now. So there's a new version. So this is a special case. They call it the HoloFrame Naked Eye 3D case. So it acts like a normal case, just like this, but it has like a lenticular kind of coating on the inside. So if you go into the Insta app, let's unlock the phone here, you can go into a video that you've created or a photo, and down at the very bottom there's this little option which I didn't show you before, which is like 3 little squares. You click on that and then it guides you through setting this all up. So you put the case back on with the on the front, the same sort of manner, but actually on the front of the phone itself, and it kind of makes a 3D view. So if we click next, and there we go, it looks for your eyes, and you can't see this, but it's like a 1080p sort of rectangular sort of video with depth to it. So I can see these people walking around, and there is actually depth. So it's nice to think that you don't even need to carry around that little sort of plastic sort of viewer to slot onto your phone. You can actually have a case. They're not going to be available from launch day, so keep an eye out for details on that. I'll update the comments down below once I know more. But this is kind of cool. So it tracks your eye. You can't move it around, so it's not the VR180 moving around, but at least you kind of have a look at 3D and you can pass this around to show people. And what would be really cool is if we could get this view out as a separate video. Maybe we could crop in a side-by-side traditional 3D video from this. That would be pretty cool as well, and then be able to use that on this and all sorts of stuff, because it still is a place, I feel, for just traditional 3D content, just sort of side-by-side stuff, not always VR 180. So it's nice to think that the functionality is definitely there. And I know it'd be cool even if we could move this around VR 180 style, but that is a nice addition, so nice one with that. One of the killer features this camera does have is that you can wirelessly view the content from this camera on your Oculus Go or Gear VR headset. So no sort of rendering or stitching or anything like that. So if it's VR 180 or 360 video or photos, you can watch them straight from the camera to your Oculus Go or your Gear VR headset. All you need to do is download the Insta360 VR app on your Oculus Go, which should be in the stores for the relevant headsets today, so check that out. I'll leave the links down below once it's available. You turn your camera on by just holding down the button. Once it's connected, set up, it'll open up its little Wi-Fi. There you go, little beep means it's all ready and set. Then in your Oculus Go, all you do is go to your settings, go into Wi-Fi and connect to this Wi-Fi. So you'll find it'll be called EVO something. You enter the password 12345678. Once you've done that, you're connected. So you're no longer connected to the internet on your Oculus Go, you're connected to this camera directly. So if we jump into the Oculus Go now, and once you're in, you boot up this app here, and this is the Insta360 VR app, and you're able to watch files from your camera. Now I'm not connected to the Wi-Fi on the camera at the moment because otherwise I'm not able to record as well as I am at the moment, but you would just literally click watch camera files and they would appear here. What you can do is click on a little download button and then they're actually downloaded to your headset. So that's what I've done here. Once I've connected it, I've clicked the little download button, waiting for it to download, and now it's in the headset. Once again, no stitching required, no nothing. It's the default INSV files that the camera produces straight into the headset. So here we go. Here's the video that I recorded earlier of me outside doing the intro. So let's let it load up. It does suggest that you use the storage saver option just to make it a bit quicker and a bit nippier, but I think if you download it to your headset, the 5.7K quality video is just as good as, you know, downloading it to a PC or a phone, rendering it out and watching it back, sort of thing. So this works really well. So it means when you're out and about in the field, you're doing a project, you're using this camera to film something, you can near instantly watch it in a VR headset. I mean, you could essentially kind of put the little VR goggle thing on your phone and watch it, but this is just so much more immersive. You feel like you're part there. I mean, that hand coming out is just like life size. It is an awesome, awesome feature. So this makes it almost the perfect VR camera for your Oculus Go. And it goes for 360 as well. It goes for photos. You can watch either of them in the VR headset straight from the camera. Straight from the camera. You stream it. So brilliant. Big thumbs up for Insta for this one. Well thought out feature. And I mean, in itself, if you've got an Oculus Go, this is almost a no-brainer to get. The other day I took the Insta360 EVO as well as the Vuze XR camera along to the cathedral. So Gloucester Cathedral, went down, shot loads of footage for a couple of hours. And I'll we'll go through that now and sort of show you a comparison of the two videos. I'm going to put together a VR 180 video on my channel for all that footage that came from the cathedral made with this camera. So make sure you check that out as well. I'll make sure I leave a link above and below. As I say, all sort of the raw files and stuff like that, I'll put some of those down below as well so you can check them out for yourself and test them out in the software and all that sort of good stuff. But let's have a little look and compare these two cameras. So here's an example of a photo taken inside the cathedral. On the left here we've got the EVO, on the right we have the Vuze XR. So as you can see, the one on the left is HDR because the Vuze doesn't offer that. You could say that's unfair, but I would say it's using the tools at your hand, because the Vuze literally has no manual controls at all on Android. You can't set exposure or anything. On iOS, you can hold on the screen on the app and set exposure to wherever you tap, but you can't sort of set anything else. So you can't set shutter speed or anything. And the EVO allows you to do HDR photos. So if we zoom into these here and have a little bit of a closer look, you can see the detail is so much more defined on the EVO, because even down in the shadows down here, you can see details that are lost on the Vuze. There's very much details down here, and say for example in the stained glass up here, look at that, you've got so many more details. We can zoom in a little bit. Let's try and zoom in. There we go. Let's zoom in there and zoom in about there, and look at the detail difference. I get that about the same. Look, you can see all the different panels, all the different lines in the camera, in the lens. If anything, it looks a little bit larger here, because I guess that means I need to zoom out just a little bit. Yeah. But look at that, the details are there. I would probably say the Vuze looks a little bit crisper outside of the shadows, but what I would say with the HDR on this, I had 2 stops up and 2 stops down, which I think I probably could have got away with maybe sort of 1 stop up and down instead. That maybe would have just put out a sort of slightly crisper image. But what you can do with this is you could probably color correct this a little bit and get a little bit more detail out of these. So it looks a little bit sort of more crisp around sort of these arches and everything like that on the Vuze. But you definitely get a lot more detail in the highlights, which you just don't get in the Vuze itself. The Vuze just loses all that detail, whereas in the 1X I think you're getting a lot more. So if you look here in the shadows and everything like that, this is looking probably more detailed in the shadows because it's just darker than it is here. You can probably color correct this to make it a bit similar to that, but so, you know, that's one comparison with the photo. Once again, here's another photo outside. So on the left we have the EVO, on the right we have the Vuze. It looks like more, kind of looks more detailed, doesn't it, in the Vuze, sort of in the actual buildings itself. But if you look at the sky, it is just gone. Absolutely blown out, destroyed. You've got a little bit of blue sky around where the tree is. But you've got a lot of sort of purple fringing going on there around the tree as well. And then you look at the EVO and look at that, you've got all of the sky there. There's some was over here by the sort of tower, and you can see all of that sky, all of that detail is still there. And that's the biggest downside to this Vuze camera, is you just lose so much. I'll probably say the picture looks a little bit soft on the old EVO here, but that's mainly because it's not as dark. You could easily now darken this picture down a little bit to match, and I'm sure you'd get a very crisp looking picture. But you can sort of see, you can see into the shadows of the bushes, which you can't see in here. What else we got? We've got people down there. No, they were taken at slightly different times. But I don't know, sometimes actually some of the distant detail does maybe look a little bit better on the Vuze. But I think just for dynamic range, you've got to give it to the EVO. Here we have a 360 picture, so EVO on the left, Vuze on the right. You can see once again the details. I mean, the dynamic range, if you look straight down at this sort of corridor, makes a world of difference. If we zoom in, let's go in 15. Let's go in 15 on this one. You can sort of see the difference in sort of dynamic. Like, this is all lost. This is all information you can't see. You could probably brighten it up, but then what you'd lose in brightening up, you'd lose in other details up here, like the stained glass here. You can see so much more of the stained glass details here that you can't see here. There is a little bit of purple fringing going on here though on the EVO. So look over here, but then saying that you've got more of the bars and stuff here because you've lost them. So it's a bit of a sort of toss-up, I guess. Quality wise, as we get closer to the camera, definitely, I think there's definitely sort of a better sort of quality going on here on the floor on the EVO for sure. That quality is definitely better there. Look, it just starts getting all muddy, doesn't it? As soon as the dark comes in on the Vuze, it just loses all quality. Let's have a look at this here. I don't know. The Vuze looks a little bit nicer sort of from this angle, but then that's probably just because it needs to be darkened, color corrected maybe on the EVO. One thing I would say in the 360 photos, if you look on the Vuze does have some options on the software to help with stitching, but you can never get a perfect stitch. They don't do optical flow stitching, so the stitching is literally kind of blurring the lines between the two. If you kind of look here, you can clearly see the stitch line all the way up here, look, and look how bad that is there. That terrible stitch line. The 1X, no, not the 1X, the EVO was a slightly different angle, so the stitch lines were sort of straight on down the side here, but so you can't see them. But it uses optical flow stitching, so you can kind of see where the camera used to be. There was like power wires going in, charging the cameras because I'm going all day. But you can kind of see the stitch line is pretty much non-existent on this camera. I can't see it. Let's have a look on the other side, so you sort of see where the Vuze was here. Look, there's still a little bit of Vuze because it was next to it. But there's no obvious stitch line. And even when you run to the bottom, it's just not there. So it's impressive. The optical flow, just in the camera itself, doing it via the app or the desktop software, it's just so much better. here's a still taken from some of the video that I took while I was in the cathedral. As you can see, the EVO on the left shows a lot better dynamic range. You can read, where you can sort of see the pattern along here. You can sort of see under here the shadows. These characters have got a lot more detail to them, and if you kind of look down the corridor just to the right there, there's definitely a bit more detail there. It seems a bit sort of sharper, a bit crisper maybe in the sort of immediate sort of front of the Vuze, but then sort of looking in here, I mean I can't zoom in because it's video, but that I'm not sure that looks any more clearer on there than it does there. If anything, actually looks a little bit clearer on there if I kind of get my head close to the screen. But what I will do is I'll leave these videos, the source files for these videos, as well as these kind of rendered out, stitched together sort of videos down below, because it's probably best that you watch these back in a VR headset and compare them for yourself. So that's what I'll do. So I won't grade either of these. I haven't graded them. They'll be as they are. So I'll leave the sort of default files, what comes straight out of the camera, as well as the stitch stuff down below for you to download yourself and check out. Here's a test of the audio on the camera. How does it sound? It's far about a foot, meter, 6 foot. I'm in an alleyway, not too windy. Let's go to somewhere where it's windier. It's a fair bit windier here. You should be getting lots of wind noise on the camera. The microphones are at the front, so testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. How does it sound? Turn around and just look. How about that? How's that sound? Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3. There is desktop software available to edit and export your videos. If you want the highest 5.7K render from your footage, you do need to use the desktop software. On mobile phone, if you export from there, you only get 4K, which still looks decent, I might add, but it definitely looks a little bit nicer, a little bit crisper if you do it through the desktop software. So you need to jump onto the Insta360 website. This new software, this updated software, should be available by the time you get your camera, so the Insta360 Studio 2019. All you need to do is connect your camera to your PC and you'll have lots of INSV files, which is kind of the native format of the camera. It'll open up as a drive if you have it as, if you plug in the memory card, or if you plug in the camera, it'll open as a drive. And all you need to do is open the software and then drag and drop your software, your file that you want to export, into here. You can export as many as you want at the same time. You can drag and drop them all over. But I'm just going to do one just for the sake of time. And what you get is kind of your typical sort of almost video editing sort of timeline. So you get your timeline here with all your video footage. You can trim it if you just want certain bits to sort of certain times. So here to here, for example, trim that in. And when you export, only export that little bit. So if you've got a bit where you're just getting yourself ready or it's a little bit wobbly or something, you can do. If you have more than one listed here, you just double tap them or double click them to get them to appear down here. And you basically kind of just go through each one, editing it the best you want, and then you can export them and it will remember it. So once you're happy kind of with how long you want it to go for, what I will show you here was this footage was me running down an alleyway or towards the cathedral. So if you look here, it's nice and super smooth because we've got flow state stabilization on. So this is Insta360's kind of signature feature where they stabilize 360 and VR180 footage. So this is VR180 stabilized. So let's go back to the start here. Let's turn off the stabilization and play it. So this is what it looked like originally when I was running. I don't do much running towards the cathedral. To give you an example, this would make you absolutely chuck a load up and vomit if you watch this back in VR180 in a headset. It would be horrible. But if you turn on flow state stabilization even, look how smooth that is. And that's me. I'm a big guy running. I don't do much running. That's some impressive stabilization. You can almost see the kind of camera coming in and out of frame as it kind of stabilizes it. You don't seem to lose any picture either, look, from stabilization to no stabilization. Sometimes, like some cameras, they crop in, but I guess this is like stabilizing the entire sort of VR180 sort of 3D spheres, 360 spheres almost, aren't they? But 180's worth. So very impressive. So once you're happy with your clip, we'll jump off that. You've got a few export types here. So horizontal VR180 3D, that's pretty much what you'll do 99% of the time. because that's kind of how you'd usually export it. You can choose to do top and bottom. Some VR players prefer that. You can do that. And you can also do 360. So if you want to actually export it ready for 360 and have the 360 sphere as well available, so you can still kind of look behind you, you can do that. So you might want to use that for editing as part of a 360 video if you wanted to. But 99% of the time you choose the top one, and then you literally just click the top button. Do you want to save the changes? Choose your options. You can choose your resolution, so you can choose any resolution you want, but the 5760 by 2880 is your resolution. That does mean that you only get half of that resolution across the horizontal per eye, but that's exactly the same as any other VR180 camera that you get at the moment, so you never get 5.7K full per eye. You get half of that. You can choose your bitrate. The original bitrate here was 110 megabits a second. You can increase it to 150 or go lower or customize it. I probably wouldn't go higher, because why? It's no higher than what it already is. You can choose where you want to save it and you just export. And what I would say is maybe a minute of footage takes about 3 minutes to export, and it can do a little bit quicker than that, but I would average about 3 minutes per minute of footage. So be selective about what you want to export. So here we are where I first recorded that intro. So here's the camera setup. It's plugged into power at the moment, so plugged into a USB power bank. You can do that and it runs absolutely fine. As I say before, it can actually run straight off the power even if it's on 0, so you don't have to kind of worry about power at all. That power bank there will probably last it all day, and as long as you've got the memory card to support it, it'll keep doing it. So it's set up on a Bushman monopod, so it's got a small base, so you can kind of keep it as slim as you can. And what you ideally want to do is kind of keep everything front as sort of slim as you can, so you can't see it, because obviously the camera can kind of see anything that it kind of sees to the side full 180, so you want to kind of keep it as slim as you can. So this Bushman monopod, I'll leave a link to it down below, is ideal. It's reasonably stable. It's got a weighted base a little bit, so it kind of keeps it a little bit stable. And I always find as well, the base that it comes with, you can kind of position it in a way that you can kind of put your foot on it to kind of pin it down. It's got a slight wobble at the very top end, but it depends where you're using it. I find if I'm kind of using it outdoors, all I'll do is just place a finger on the back just to kind of steady it even more while I'm filming. Because I'm only filming forward in VR180, I don't need to be able to hide like in 360, and it works perfectly well. So that's my kind of suggestions for setup. And then use the mobile phone app so you can kind of trigger it remotely, so you don't even have to touch the camera to make it wobble or anything like that. But if you want to, because the buttons are on top, all you gotta do is press the buttons on top, and you're not in the way making a mess of your shot or anything like that. It's not the sort of thing that you could probably run around and easily click to take photos, because the button's on top. But I'd probably suggest if you are taking a lot of photos, maybe you'd put yourself sort of a joint on the end here to kind of angle it out a little bit, so you can kind of almost have it almost like gimbalized, so you can take a photo at a slight angle, almost like, so it's like that when you're taking a photo and the monopod's coming back, because then you kind of lean forward and you can still take a photo without getting in the way. But for video and stationary shots, which is probably where you should do most of your video, because I think sort of motion can make people feel sick, especially in sort of VR, if they've got a VR headset on. So now you have an interesting buying decision. Which of these three cameras do you get? They're all kind of within a similar price range. The Insta360 One X is a 360 only camera, but it's super portable, got replaceable batteries, and it's had a lot of support, and Insta have really worked hard on making this a great camera. Is it good? Yes, but if you've got the stat money for this, I would probably suggest you get this, just because you get the 360 and the VR180 option, so you're not limited to just one. The quality is nigh on the same between the two. You've got the same features, the same sort of free capture and stabilization and everything works just as good on this camera, and you get the massive added benefit of the VR180 sort of 3D videos and photos. So it's almost a no-brainer. So the real competitor, I guess, to this camera is the Vuze. It's the only other 5.7K VR180 camera. You do have Lenovo Mirage and the QCam by Candau, but they're both 4K. The Mirage, I think, pretty much gets discounted entirely because it doesn't have a lot of support, but the QCam does have a lot of support, but it's a similar price range to these two. So about $400 for any of these, Which one do you get? Well, once again, I think you get the Insta360 EVO. The QCam is great. I mean, I've been using it for a few weeks since it came out in December, but the support for it, software size, has been pretty poor. You've got pretty much no manual controls on this. If you've got iOS, you can tap on the screen to set exposure, but that's it. You can't control shutter, you can't control ISO, anything like that. You've all got just literally the default options on this. If you're on Android, you've got even less options. It's a kind of convenient package. You've got like a handle already, but you still kind of get your fingers in the way, so it's not kind of perfect. That mechanism, you know, it could break. It's spring loaded. If the spring gives out, will it ever go back sort of full again? I don't know. Obviously you can sort of nudge this when you are filming. If you're a bit rough with it, you shouldn't be. I wouldn't be. I don't think that ever happened to me. But say for example with the One X, you can lock it in place and then it just doesn't bend in. At some point I know with the Vuze they're going to add spatial audio, but at the moment they don't. They only have stereo. So does this. This will never have spatial audio. So whether that's important to you, maybe that's the reason to get this. But you know, I don't know. I think you're giving up a lot to get this instead of this. This one is 5.7K, so this one, so the image quality is similar in VR180. What I would say is in the 360 mode of the Vuze compared to the One X, it's night and day. The 360 quality and the stabilization that you get from this camera is tenfold better than this one. Absolutely. This, I mean, the features that you get, the free capture, so you can kind of reframe into a normal video, you've got all those options. On the app, you've got those options. On the desktop software, you've got those options. With the QCam, you just don't have the same level of support. And for the same price, where technically, look how much bigger that is in sort of form factor, carrying that around or carrying that around, you know, that's kind of actually a lot smaller, especially when you kind of keep it in the VR180 mode, keeping it flat and just sliding it into a pocket or something. It's absolutely brilliant. The memory card doesn't come out as easy. Look, that's nice and flush. You can't press that in and it come out, whereas in the Vuze here, you can kind of see the memory card kind of sticks out. And I've had it a few times when I've been charging at the same time as using, and I've pressed, and then the memory card just pops out just by pressing with a flat finger. So I don't like that feature. I do not like that feature at all. But then saying that, this is cool. I mean, that is cool. Is it worth getting this over this? No, absolutely not. This has now become the VR180 camera. That's me flipping it around. That I recommend. Everyone should get one of these. If you're in the range of £400 or $400-ish, this is the one that you should be getting. The quality and the functionality in this camera is just unbelievable. The value for money in this is awesome. And Insta360 have a proven track record of software support for their devices. The amount of updates and tweaks and changes they put out is unreal. They really do support them. And say, for example, when the One X first came out, it was a bit sort of feature lacking, and now it has pretty much every feature you can imagine. From HDR video and photos, to controlling every single sort of manual feature you could really imagine. The desktop software recently got an update that added lots of sort of editing options. It's great, and it uses the same software for this as it does for this, so you do get all the same sort of options. I mean, what negatives can you say about this camera? Maybe the lights. I think if we could turn some of the flashing lights off, it would be quite good, because especially if I'm sort of filming up against glass and this is like flashing away. I was like trying to film some fish tanks. I've got some videos on that. This was flashing away and reflecting in the glass, so I'd like to be able to turn those off. Maybe keep the top ones on, or maybe have some sort of dimming settings or something, or ideally just have the option to turn them off completely. And I think that's probably literally my only real complaint is the flashing lights. Everything else feels well made. It transforms from both modes, back and forth without a problem. Transforming it from the two different modes, I guess there are, as I say before, you can kind of maybe touch the lenses a bit too easy as you're kind of moving them between the two. That's probably the bonus with this one, if you don't really touch the lenses. Except for when you maybe go back to 360, you gotta be careful. But other than that, this, you kind of feel like you're a bit close to the lenses maybe. So maybe make sure you've always got a cloth or something, or even the nice little sort of pouch it comes with to give the lens a little polish, because you don't want any blemishes. Especially if the smudge is only on one eye. When you're watching in 3D, it's gonna be a bit sort of hard to watch, so make sure you wipe those lenses down. It would have been nice to have USB-C maybe rather than micro USB, but I mean, it charges itself fine with a power bank while you're using it if you need it. So I mean, I tend to take the memory cards out to transfer footage these days anyway, because I just have one memory card reader, pop the card out, pop it in, pop it out. That's my preferred method of transferring data, so it's not much of an issue for me. So overall, this camera gets a massive, massive thumbs up from me. So let me know in the comments down below if you've got any questions about this camera. Do you want me to do any sort of comparisons to any of the cameras you've seen today? Maybe I'll compare it to my Insta360 Pro 2 if you fancy seeing that. I'm super active in the comments down below, so as I say, if you've got any questions, let me know down below. I'll answer as many as I can, as many questions as you've got, and I'll follow them up in other videos in the coming weeks. So let me know what you want to see in VR180. I think for me, because my channel is mainly focused on the Oculus Go and VR headset, this is the absolute perfect companion for this headset. It works so well with it wirelessly, and even if you sort of load the footage onto YouTube or anything like that, it still looks amazing in VR180 on the Oculus Go. Thank you once again for Insta360 for sending me this camera early. I really do appreciate it. As you can see, I'm a big fan of VR180 cameras and 360 cameras. I pretty much buy them all, so it's nice to get one for free for a change. But that doesn't influence my review at all. I've always been a fan of Insta360. As I say, I've got the Insta360 Pro 2 for my business, so it pays for my bills, and I definitely didn't get that camera free, I can assure you. They didn't pay me to say anything good about the camera, but I genuinely do feel really positive about it and looking forward to creating some new content with it. So as I say, let me know if you've got any comments, questions, and what you think about it. If you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. If not, give it a thumbs down. That's fine. I'm big enough and ugly enough to take it. But do let me know in the comments down below why you didn't like it. I try and do better for next time. Become one of the Remarkables. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to be notified when I next upload a video. And that's me done. I'm out. Have a virtual high five.